So let's read this passage here. It says contemporary internet shopping conjures a perfect storm of choice anxiety. Research has consistently held that people who are presented with a few options make better, easier decisions than those presented with many. Helping consumers figure out what to buy amid an endless sea of choice online has become a cottage industry unto itself. So this passage, which came in CAT 2019 in the first law, talks about contemporary internet shopping, and the author seems to be focusing on the on too much of choices and how it is impairing people's ability to make the right decision. He says many brands and retailers now wield marketing buzzwords such as curation, differentiation, and discovery as they attempt to sell an assortment of stuff targeted to their ideal customer. Companies find such shoppers through the data of goldmine of digital advertising, which can catalog people by gender, income level, personal interests, and more. Since Americans have lost the ability to sort through the sheer volume of the consumer choices available to them, a ghost now has to be in the retail machine, whether it is an algorithm, an influencer, or some snazzy ad tech to help a product follow you around the internet. Indeed, choice fatigue is one reason so many people gravitate towards lifestyle influencers on Instagram. The relentlessly chick young moms and perpetually vacationing 20 somethings who present an aspirational worldview and then recommend the products and services that help them achieve it. So, if you read this first paragraph, the author has first highlighted the problem that when people are presented with too many options, it is difficult for them to take the right decision. And now, because of that, people are coming up with different buzzwords to basically attempt to target the ideal customers. And then companies find such shoppers through data of to how digital advertising helps people to precisely helps the companies to precisely pinpoint who could the ideal customer be, and so on and so forth. So we know basically that the author seems to be talking about choice, too many choices for the customers, and how that has resulted in lots of things. Anyways, let's go and read the next paragraph. He says, for a relatively new class of consumer product and startup, there is another method entirely. So when you say there is another method, there is one method which helps people pick the right product. And the other method is, instead of making sense of a sea of existing stuff, these companies claim to disrupt stuff as Americans know it. Casper mattresses, Glossier makeup, Away suitcases, and many others have sprouted up to offer consumers freedom from choice. So these companies are offering customers freedom from choice. The companies have a few aesthetically pleasing and supposedly highly functional options, usually a mid-range prices. They are selling nice things, but maybe more importantly, they are selling a confidence in those things. So you have the example of companies who are selling stuffs to people with fewer choices. So the choice fatigue was the problem, and the choice fatigue has been overcome by different ways. Here what the first para says, and there is one more way: focus on fewer options. That is what the second para says. So let's go ahead and check the third paragraph. We'll just scroll down the passage here. So the third paragraph says that $1,000. It says $1,000 mattresses and $3,000 and $300 suitcases might solve choice anxiety for a certain tier of consumer, but the companies that sell them, along with those that attempt to massage the larger stuff economy into something navigable, are still just working within a consumer market that's broken in systematic ways. The presence of so much stuff in America might be more valuable if it were more evenly distributed. But stuff's creators tend to focus their energy on those who already have plenty. As options have expanded for people with disposable income, the opportunity to buy even basic things such as fresh food has contracted much of America's lower classes. And then he further says, for startups that promise accessible simplicity, their very structure still might eventually push them toward overwhelming variety. So the author has said that that startups that promise fewer choices, the author says the very structure might still eventually push them towards overwhelming variety. Why? He says most of these companies are based on hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital, the investors of which tend to expect a steep growth rate that can't be achieved by selling one great mattress or one great sneaker. Casper has expanded into bedroom furniture and bed linens. Glossier, after few years of marketing itself as no makeup that requires little skill to apply, recently launched a full line of glittering color cosmetics. There may be no way to opt out of stuff by buying into the right thing. So the author has towards the end taken a U-turn. He says that because of investment pressure from investors, it will be difficult to achieve great steep growth rate by simply selling one great mattress or one great sneaker. So you have to get into lots of things, and as a result of that you will get into lots of variety. So he says that there may be no way to opt out of stuff by buying into the right thing. So if you look at the whole structure of the passage, the author in the first para, that is P1, he highlights a problem. The problem is that people have too many choices. The companies realize this, and therefore they try to use digital marketing and other ways to precisely reach the customer. And in the second paragraph, the author has said that there are a few companies that have taken a new route. They present customers with very few choices and good choices, and they are doing well, right? And then in the next paragraph, the author says that the third paragraph says that, as options have expanded for people with disposable income, the opportunity to buy even basic things. So $1,000 mattresses, and then he discusses what he has discussed in second paragraph in greater detail. And then towards the end, he has mentioned that eventually the companies that are selling specific stuff without much variety may end up putting in too much of variety because of investment pressure, as they might be forced or compelled to sell lots of things to lots of people, and as a result of that, the author says there may be no way to opt out of stuff by simply buying into the right thing. So if you look at the overall structure of the paragraph, it's very much gettable that the author seems to be talking about fewer varieties and at low and mid-range prices and so on and so forth. So let's look at the questions first and then see what kind of questions are there, and accordingly we can zero down on that area of the passage where the answers are hidden. The first question says, which of the following best sums up the overall purpose of the examples of Casper and Glossier in the passage? So we know that the examples of Casper and Glossier has come in the second paragraph. The author has said that for a relatively new class of consumer product startup, there is another method entirely. Instead of making sense of a sea of existing stuff, these companies claim to disrupt stuff, as Americans know it. Casper into mattresses and Glossier into makeup and many others have sprouted up to offer consumers freedom from choice. So the primary idea is that they are providing freedom from choice. So what exactly is their purpose? Their purpose is the freedom of choice. And the question says, which one of the following best sums up the overall purpose of the examples of Casper and Glossier in the passage? So option 1 says they are facilitating a uniform distribution of commodities in. See, this is not uniform distribution, so this definitely has to go out. They might transform into what they were exceptions to. Now, if you look at this passage, at this option is definitely true about Casper and Glossier, because the author has introduced Casper and Glossier by telling us that Casper and Glossier are trying to give freedom to the customer from too many choices. So they are focusing on selected products, and in that selected product they are having very few varieties and good varieties. But towards the end, the author has said that they also might end up in the same league because of investment pressure, because not much of revenue can be generated by focusing on fewer products and exclusive product. So eventually they also might end up expanding and getting too many varieties. So what has been given in option 2 is very correct. These Glossier and Casper, they might transform into what they were exceptions to. So they were exceptions to basically those companies that offered too many choices. But now they will end up becoming that. That is what it means. And that fear has been expressed by the author in this last paragraph. And in the last paragraph, if you correctly remember, he has categorically mentioned that thing. He says towards the end that most of the companies are based on hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital, the investors of which tend to expect a steep growth rate that can't be achieved by selling one. Casper has expanded into lots of other things. Glossier, after years of marketing itself as no makeup that requires little skill, recently launched a full line of glittering color cosmetics. So they are actually expanding into lots of other things, and thereby they are becoming what they were exceptions to earlier. So pretty much straight away the right choice is option 2. I would say this is an easy question, because if you look at 3, it says they are exceptions to a dominant trend in consumer market. So they are exceptions to a dominant trend but they were exceptions. Why? They were exceptions because now they have introduced a variety of products. So they are no more exceptions. They have become very similar too. So this is not the right choice. They are increasing the purchasing power. So again, this goes out. You have option 2, which is, I would say, precisely. And the author has given the example of Casper and Glossier, not simply that they are exceptions too, but also he is further extending that argument. They were exceptions too, but gradually they are on the path of becoming similar to what they were exceptions to. So you have to read and answer the question not from the second paragraph only, but from the overall idea of the passage. And that's why 2 is definitely the best choice and the right answer. Now question number 2 says, a new food brand plans to launch a series of products in the American market. Which of the following plans is most likely to be supported by the author of the passage? Now the author of the passage has said here, he says the companies have a few aesthetically pleasing and supposedly high functional options, usually at mid-range prices. They are selling nice things, but maybe more importantly, they are selling a confidence in those things. So he says that fewer options at mid-range prices. And then he says in the next paragraph, $1,000 mattresses and $300 suitcases might solve choice anxiety for a certain tier of consumer. But the companies that sell them, along with those that attempt to massage the largest of economy into something unethical, are still just working within a consumer market that's broken in systematic ways. So the author wants to say that why should you sell it only for specific range of customers? Sell it basically for a wider stuff. That's why he says, that at mid-range prices. And that is where he is very much appreciating Casper and Glossier. He says that Casper and Glossier and many others have sprouted up to offer consumers freedom from choice. The companies have a few aesthetically pleasing and supposedly high functional options, usually at mid-range prices. They are selling nice things, so the author seems to be in favor of mid-range prices. And not in favor of $1,000 mattresses and $300 suitcases, because they are still working within a consumer market that's broken in systematic ways. So if you want to really go beyond the consumer market that is not broken, you have to go for a lower price range, right? So that means basically the first choice can happen through the number of varieties. Too many varieties. So you have only 2 and 3. And because we have mid-range prices, mid-range is 5 and 10 and not 10 and 25. You might wonder, sir, what is mid-range? How can we decide that what is mid-range? Because $5 and 10 could be very, very low, and 10, 25 could be mid-range, and 25 and 50, 75 could be a high range. Well, people, that is not what we are trying to do here. We know that the author has favored fewer choices, so we have to choose from 2 and 3, and he has favored mid-range. So mid-range for me is 5 and 10, because looking at the figures, I feel 10 and 25 on the higher side of what I have. So 2 straight away has to be the choice. There is no debate about it. There is no subjective thing that 10 and 25 might be mid-range because 50 and 75 might be a higher range. I mean, there is no such debate. So we have to pick the choice which is logically correct, and mid-range here means, right? So that is how we have, it's a difficult question, because what is mid-range and what is high range is very much a subjective question. But $5 and $10 and 10 products, so you have not many choices, and it's a mid-range because the higher range could be higher than that. I mean, slightly awkward question, but 2 is the best answer. Now let's look at question number 3. It says, based on the passage, all of the following can be inferred about consumer behavior except. So we have to read the options first. Sometimes inference questions take too much time. Sometimes they're gettable very easily. So it says, based on the passage, all of the following can be inferred except. That means the one that cannot be inferred is the right answer. So too many options have made it difficult for consumers to trust products. Yes, because Casper and Glossier, they are selling confidence, right? So if they are selling confidence by selling fewer products, that means basically too many products will definitely make it difficult for consumers to trust products. So we know that one is definitely inferable. So one cannot be the right choice. Why? Because we have to mark the one that cannot be inferred. It's an accept question. So always read the question carefully before you arrive at the final answer. And then he says consumers tend to prefer products by startups over those. This is nowhere stated or implied. I mean, there is no such implication or suggestion. So this could be one of the choices. Having too many products options can be overwhelming. Of course, because one is true, three has to be true. And because it is overwhelming, it makes things difficult for consumers. Consumers are susceptible to marketing images that they see on social media. Definitely, because the author has clearly mentioned that indeed choice fatigue is one reason so many people gravitate towards lifestyle influencers on Instagram. Instagram is social media. So if they are gravitating towards Instagram, that means people are definitely affected by the what they see on social media. So they are susceptible to it, no doubt about it. So 4 also can be inferred. And the one that cannot be inferred is option 2. Because people tend to prefer products by startups over those by established companies. Nowhere has it been discussed. The reason why Casper and Glossier are doing well is not because they are startups, but because they are offering freedom from too many choices to customers. They are giving freedom to customers from too many choices, and that's the reason they are doing well. And not because they are because customer prefer startups over established companies. 3 goes out. Definitely not true. Option 2 is the best choice for 3. Now, when you go to 4, question number 4, it says all of the following, if true, would weaken the author's claims except. So you have to weaken all of the following except. So if you look at these questions here, you have to pick the one that is weakening the author's claim. Now we have to understand that what is the author's claim? The author's claim is that fewer products means fewer varieties, fewer choices means better performance, better this. So you have to just check. Option 1 says product options increased market competition, bringing down the prices of commodities, which in turn increased purchasing power of the poor. So he says product options increased market competition, bringing down the prices of. So the author says fewer product options is a good choice. The author says fewer product options is a good thing. But if product options increased competition and it increased and therefore by increasing market competition, if it brings down the price of commodities and in turn increase the purchasing power of the poor, so this is a positive thing of having too many choices. So if this is a positive thing of having too many choices, then the author is ignoring this positive thing, and therefore by bringing option 1, you are weakening the author's claim. The author says have fewer options. Option 1 says product options increases the purchasing power of the poor. So you are weakening the author's point. Option 2 says the annual sales growth of companies with fewer product options were higher than that of companies which curated their products for target. So the author says that the growth of companies with fewer products was higher. So you are supporting the author. You're not weakening. So that means basically except can be found in 2. Because the question says you have to pick the one that would not weaken. All of the following, if true, would weaken except. So 1 would weaken, therefore it is not the right choice. 2 is not weakening, it is strengthening, therefore it is the right choice. So 2 becomes the right choice automatically. There is no need for me to go and read the 3rd and the 4th option. But still you can go and check the empowerment felt by purchasers in buying a commodity were directly proportional to the number of options. So again, this is in favor of more options. So 3, like 1, is in favor of options. 4, the annual sale of companies that hired lifestyle influencers on Instagram for marketing their products were 40% less than those did not. So this is again weakening because the author has said that people are moving to Instagram because that helps them make choices. But if that happens, then their products are 40% less. It says the annual sale of companies that hired lifestyle influencers were 40% less. So if lifestyle influencers are not making an impact, then the author's example of Instagram is also not making an impact. So you are weakening the author's claim. So option 2 is the best choice. You have to go and check the passage. If you want to throw out option 4 in question number 4, you'll have to read the passage and the author has categorically said here He said that choice fatigue is one reason so many people gravitate towards lifestyle influencers. But if if this is resulting in lower sales, then choice fatigue is basically a flawed idea, and therefore the author's claim is getting weakened. That is how option 4 is weakening the author's claim in question number 3. I hope you have got question number 3 correctly. Okay, this goes out. Sorry, I'm sorry. Question number, yes, question number 4, option 4. So this option goes out because of that part which we read. Correct? So the annual sale of companies that hired lifestyle influencers is less. That basically means lifestyle influencers are not giving freedom to people from choice fatigue, which the author has claimed, and therefore option 4 also goes out. Let's take the 5th question now. Which of the following hypothetical statements would add the least depth to the author's prediction? So what is going to be the fate of startups offering few? The author has said they are going to become similar to others. In the last para, the author says that Glossier, after years of marketing itself as no makeup, has now launched a full line of glittering color cosmetics. There may be no way to opt out of this. That means the author says basically that most of the startups will start, promoting variety of products because of investment and revenue pressure. So the question says which of the following hypothetical statements would add the least depth? So least depth basically means the one that adds depth will go out, and the one does not add depth will become the right choice, right? One says with Casper and Glossier venturing into new product ranges, their regular customers start losing trust. This is definitely adding depth, so this goes out. Startups with few product options are no exception to the American consumer market that is deeply divided along class lines. So startups with fewer product options are no exception to the American consumer market that is deeply divided along class lines. So the author says that along class lines it is deeply divided, and therefore startups with few products options are no exception to the American consumer. So the fate of startups is not going to be great. Why? Because they are no exception. It's a routine thing. Then it says an exponential surge in their sales enables startups to meet their desired profit goals without expanding their. So this is not going to add much depth to the author's argument. Why? Because this is actually criticizing the author's argument. See, you want to add depth to the author's prediction. So the author's prediction would get depth only by supporting the author's argument. So the regular customers start losing trust, and therefore the author's prediction will be true. What is the author's prediction? The author's prediction is that there may be no way to opt out of stuff by buying into the right thing. There may be no way to opt out of stuff. So the author says that the choice fatigue will always be there. So this option shows yes, choice fatigue will always be there. This option also it shows that startups with fewer product options are no exception to the American consumer that is deeply divided along class lines. So if it is deeply divided along class lines, these startups will not be able to make money, and therefore they would have to venture into other areas. So this also is adding value to the author's argument. Exponential surge in their sales enables startups to meet their desired profit without expanding. So then the author's prediction is basically getting flawed, and therefore this is definitely not adding much value to the author's prediction. With the motive of promoting certain rival companies, the government decides to double tax the rates for these startups. So if if there is double tax rate, then definitely they are going to suffer. So option 4 will make them suffer. Option 2 will make them suffer because if the market is divided along class lines, you need to find more markets, and therefore you will try to diversify. So you will shut down, you will diversify, therefore you would also you will basically provide choice fatigue to people. I mean, people have choice fatigue from option 2. Option 1 also, you are losing customers' trust. So all option 1, 2 and 4 are along the lines of what the author has to say, except 3. So 3 becomes the right choice. So except for question number 5, most of the questions were easy. In fact, surprisingly, 5 questions from the topophilia passage and 4 questions from this passage can easily be answered. So you have almost 27 marks coming from this specific part of the passage from these 2 passages.
Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get notifications of future videos.